Have you ever heard the phrase, just because you have a cactus doesn't mean you have to sit on it? Hi, my name is Thomas Brown, and I'd like to use that sort of funny metaphor today to talk to you about stress, COVID, the holiday season that is essentially upon us, and acceptance. And acceptance is a tool that might help us get through this sort of challenging time that's upon us. So, what do I mean by this funny metaphor? This idea that just because you have a cactus doesn't mean you have to sit on it. Well, it's a little bit like thinking about just because you've got something hard in your life doesn't mean you have to suffer because of it. There's another idea that just because we have some pain in our lives doesn't mean we have to suffer. And there's a difference between those two things. The pain is sort of the thing that is we're actually experiencing. Maybe it's actually physical pain, or maybe it's emotional pain, or something we don't love in our lives. That's the cactus. And the suffering is sort of the way we are approaching it, or the way we're experiencing it, what we're focusing on, and how our life is being impacted by it. That's the sitting on the cactus. And so that's what I kind of like to talk about today. Whether we have a cactus or not, we can kind of decide how we're going to respond to that. And so, what is our cactus right now? Well, let's set the scene a bit. So, it is December 10th today. I'm in Ontario, and we are in code red for the pandemic. And I know across the country, things aren't much better in other provinces. There's shutdowns and lockdowns. I know people in Winnipeg, and I think the word outlawed has been used to talk about social gatherings there. And so the pandemic is raging, which is stressful in and of itself. Let's layer on top of that it's December 10th and the holiday season is here. And so with that comes the joy of the holiday season, but also the stresses and the pressures of the holiday season. The gifts, the decorating, the running around, the potential busyness, and also the conversations that happen with family about how we're going to navigate this holiday season. And often there's stress around that, whose house are we going to? How is this going to work? Well, our gifts, that sort of thing happening. And this year, I'm hearing that, those conversations are quite different. How are we going to do this with COVID? Some family members want to get together and are comfortable with that. Others are not. And so there's different kinds of stressful conversations that are happening that are adding to all of this. And so there's this level of stress that's out there because of COVID. There's a layered effect because of the holiday season. And then there's this sort of coming together of those two things that's just making it really different. And let's remember, we've never done this before. We've never been here. This is our first Christmas in a pandemic. And so all of us are kind of going, how do we do this? What's going on? I don't know. And so that's our cactus. There it is, out in the open. We've talked about it. And haven't talked about our emotional responses to it, but all of us will feel different. I've heard things like resentment, anxiety, frustration, anger, certainly stressed about it, but there's a lot of stuff going on for us. So there's our cactus. And so what do we do with this cactus? How do we do acceptance? And that's, I think, the important piece here. One of the first steps in acceptance is to basically be able to name, identify, note what our cactus is. And I've kind of done that here a little bit for us. Of course, all of us are going to be a little bit different. Um, I think, though, to push it a little further, when we've noted that, we also want to note what it is about this cactus we don't like. And sometimes we can think about what it is that we're resisting. Who or what am I resisting in terms of acceptance, or in terms of identifying this cactus? So maybe that sounds like, Christmas is here and I don't want it to be different. That's what I'm resisting. I'm resisting that this is going to be different. I don't want to have to be separate from my family. I don't want our traditions to change. I don't want to have to stay home. These various things that are coming. I don't want to feel stressed over the holidays. These might be all these things that we're resisting and that we're pushing against and that are keeping us from accepting. And so the first step is this idea of noting or naming the cactus, looking at that dumb thing and talking about it a bit, and also acknowledging what it is about it we don't like. I don't want this thing here because I don't want this feeling. I don't want this to change. That's the sort of the thing that we do there. Once we've done that, and once we've sort of identified it, very often there comes a little bit of sadness or grief around that. When we've kind of acknowledged those things and we've started saying, all right, here's this cactus. I don't love it, but I'm kind of seeing that it's here. We have to feel a little bit sad, maybe, or a little bit, of that grief or difficult emotion that comes up with it. We can't get rid of the cactus. We can't get rid of the pandemic. I mean, there's progress, there's hope on the horizon. I'm not gonna deny that. However, for this Christmas, this holiday season, it is what it is, and we can't change that. And so, with that will often come some sadness and grief, and we have to feel that, right? And so, that is an important first step to acceptance and change, or I guess a second step in this case. So, number one, we're noting it and we're kind of talking about what we don't love. Number two, we're feeling the grief of saying, all right, I can't change these things, um, these kind of big pieces. I can't, throw this cactus out the window. And I have to feel those emotions and I kind of breathe out, because that acceptance piece is that kind of, all right, opening to it. It's going to be this way this Christmas. It's going to be this way this holiday, and it feels sad. However, once we've done that, what I think often happens for us is that because we've breathed out, because we've had that cognitive shift of moving away from, oh, I hate this cactus and I don't want it, to saying, all right, this thing is here and I can't change that. That's a shift in our thinking. Then we kind of open up to this idea, all right, well, I've got this cactus. I don't want to sit on it because that hurts. What am I going to do? How am I going to function with this thing in my life? And it might be sitting on the cactus with that metaphor. Am I flogging it? Probably a little too much, but there it is sitting there. What am I going to do? Am I going to just stare at it? Am I going to sit on it? Am I going to wrap my hands around this cactus and feel that pain? Or could I, have a life in and around that cactus? And if we apply that to this holiday season, how am I going to connect? How can we alter our Christmas traditions so that we can still do some things that feel meaningful and festive and important for us? Who are we going to talk to? How can we sort of shift our meals and do different things? How can we get creative? And what other things can we exercise that will help us keep this all in perspective? A bit of gratitude, um, uh, a bit of, you know, looking at the good things that are around us and remembering that. I heard someone else say the other day, and I thought this was wise, maybe we need to just be really careful this Christmas so that we can have a whole lot more really great Christmases after this. And so there again is that sense of perspective. Yeah, this one might be different, but maybe if we can do this one a little different, that means all the other ones can be a little bit back to what we expect and what we kind of enjoy more. So there are three kind of steps or three phases that we have to work on. And remember, this is a process, but just because we have a cactus, just because we have, this really bizarre, odd holiday season upon us with COVID and all of those kind of different layers of stress, doesn't mean we have to sit on our cactus, doesn't mean we have to be in huge amounts of turmoil and stress about it. We might be able to note it, name it, talk about what we're resisting about it, feel the grief of that acceptance and saying, oh, I don't love it. However, here it is. And then moving into shifting our thinking into how do we get creative? How do we still have a festive season, a holiday time with this cactus sitting on the table? And who knows, maybe that cactus turns out to be a Christmas cactus.